Coming up today on LinkedIn News Live, the pandemic has upended traditional entertainment, notwithstanding professional sports. League owners are having to redefine the industry in a way they never have before. We'll speak to the president and co-owner of the Buffalo Bills on what she sees as the future of football. That and our poll coming up.
Hello, I'm Caroline Fairchild, and this is LinkedIn News Live, where the business conversation begins with you. It's October 19th, and here's a quick look at the top stories that are trending right now with professionals on LinkedIn. The daycare industry has been hit hard during the coronavirus crisis, as many working parents have lost their jobs or are keeping their kids home to reduce virus transmission. According to the Wall Street Journal, about 40% of U.S. daycares remain closed, and enrollment is not picking up. Experts are worried how it will impact the economy if more childcare providers shutter. The holiday season is fast approaching, and the number of packages needing to be shipped is set to soar. The problem? Most carriers are already at capacity. As online shopping has increased during the pandemic, a shortage in storage capacity at FedEx and UPS could impact some 7 million packages a day between Thanksgiving and Christmas. That's a lot of packages. And while millions of Americans are facing difficult times during the pandemic, the creators of the FICO score have some good news. The average consumer credit score increased in July to 711 from 708 in April. This is largely due to government and lending assistance during the crisis. If initial estimates hold, the average score is expected to stay steady through mid-October, which would be the highest level since FICO tracking began in 2005. For more stories like these, be sure to check out the news module to the right of your LinkedIn feed, or if you're in mobile, click into the search box. We've been polling professionals on the LinkedIn news page, and we want to hear from you now in the stream as well. How has your sports viewership changed as a result of the pandemic? Are you like me? Are you watching more sports, A, or B, are you watching the same amount? C, are you watching less? Or D, you never watch sports? Vote now in the stream, and we'll have a conversation about that on today's show. This week, the Milken Institute hosts its annual business conference. We typically bring you coverage on the ground, but this week we'll bring some of the speakers right to you here on LinkedIn News Live. Today, we're diving into the world of sports. The pandemic has redefined sports right before our eyes, with leaders having to rethink how to keep players safe from a virus and also mentally focused. Joining us now is one of those leaders. Kim Pegula is the president of the Buffalo Bills and Buffalo Sabres and the first female president of an NFL and NHL team. Kim, welcome to LinkedIn News Live.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. It's game day, and so it's always an exciting day for me.
It is an exciting day, and it's an exciting time. I spent most of yesterday on my couch watching football, and I'm excited to watch you guys go against the Chiefs later today. Let's start by talking about reopening. My experience as a viewer has changed dramatically since this pandemic began, but what's it been like for you?
Oh, it has changed a lot. And I'm going to say it's probably more about the people behind the scenes than the actual game itself. So, of course, you guys have all seen kind of just the no fan scenario, but it took a lot to get us to opening day from behind the scenes. Many of our staff had to work from home. Their offices and their space that they normally had to be changed into allowing for football operations to happen, as new rules and guidelines that were changing like literally every day. I'd be getting an updated email regarding how, what the changes to the protocols, and then trying to coordinate that with actually our state government and the rules and guidelines that are being handed down from our government, and then fitting that into the league rules, and then just what practical real life drama that happens with all our staff and employees on a day-to-day, whether school starts, people that have kids, or people that, are both parents are working from home. So a lot of adjustments had to be done on the fly.
Absolutely. And so much what people love about watching sports is going to the games in person, being able to do that. But I'm curious, from a leadership perspective, how has social distancing and all these new protocols affected your ability to lead right now?
Actually, I feel like from a leading standpoint, internally for our staff, it's actually brought us closer together. Like we said, nothing kind of brings a team together, both, on the field and in the offices, as a challenge, right? And so we've kind of really come together knowing that we all are facing the same issues. And I think that has been one of the biggest things that, there's been issues that we've constantly had in any industry that kind of affects your industry. but this has affected the whole world and it's affected every part of our business, our third-party partners, our sponsors, our fans, our staff, our players. So it's been a very interesting time, and I feel like people have come together knowing that we all have the same challenges ahead of us. But it certainly, as an owner, it has been hard, and we're trying to really find new ways and new opportunities to keep our viewership up, to keep our fans engaged. And here in Buffalo, like game day, tailgating, like that is such a huge part of who we are here in Buffalo. And so that has been hard to kind of find something to kind of, look that over because it's just nothing like that, especially here in Buffalo.
Kim, I'm going to go ahead and say hello to some of the members who are joining us in the stream right now. Ahmet from Turkey, Andrea from Florida, Angela from Las Vegas, Fernanda from Canada, and Stephen from New Jersey all saying hi. And Emily says, go Bills. So I guess she'll be rooting for you against the Chiefs later today. Kim, I want to start long-term impact. As you're thinking about how this period of time is going to impact the world of sports, what comes to mind?
Oh, first, back in March, when everything kind of shut down, I was thinking this was only going to be, a few months, and football was a long ways away, and certainly, we would be over all this by then. And then, the reality set in that this is going to be much longer, and I do think that this is as well, the recovery of it is going to be longer for sports. We are finding that, viewership has gone down. Our digital viewership has increased, but overall the viewership has gone down. And, we all know that the fans, the consumers, they start doing kind of different things. Once the time that is taken, they've found other things to do. And so I think it is going to be challenging over the course, not just, after the pandemic, but over the next couple of years to get those habits back, to get that viewership back, to get those fans doing the things that they love to do with sports because they found other ways to occupy their time. Or there's been other situations or things going on in the world that are more important than sports. So obviously the health and the safety of everyone and their families certainly is top of mind. As we know, this year the election is certainly top of mind for many folks, and so people are just not quite maybe as tuned into to the fandom that they had before with sports. So we're going to have to work really hard to kind of get them back into kind of their old habits that we saw before the pandemic stopped the world.
Well, Kim, you're talking about digital viewership being up. I certainly am watching a lot more sports throughout this pandemic, which wants me to bring up the poll that we have for you in the stream right now. We want to know, how has your sports viewership changed? Are you A, watching more, B, watching the same amount, C, watching less, or D, you just never watch sports? Vote now in the stream, and we'll bring up the results at the end of today's show. Kim, how do you think that poll is going to net out for us?
I don't think it's going to be more. I think just really at the end of the day, there's so many things going on, especially right now, as I talked about, going on in our world, in our personal life, that I would be surprised if it would be more. So it's either, you're watching it less is what I'm going to guess it's going to show.
All right, well, we'll definitely reveal the results of that poll at the end of the show. Kim, you also sit on the Super Bowl committee, and I'm curious, my entire family's curious, if conversations have kicked off for that event and what you can tell us about that.
Yes, as far as right now, just like the season, the league and all the clubs, we are really looking forward to finishing the season, having a Super Bowl. It's going to be in Tampa this year. Now, what that actually looks like at the end of the day, I don't know, but I know that looking at all different alternatives, as you've seen, many of you, that certain clubs, depending on which state they're in, some have fans, some have different amount of fans. We are in New York, the only team in New York, and unfortunately, we have no fans in at any of our games. But hoping that by the time February rolls around, the Super Bowl, like I said, in Tampa, in Florida, where they have been able to have fans actually since day one, we are hoping still to have a great event. And I'm hoping that we're going to be there.
I know my father's hoping that too. He's in Tampa right now and is eager to hopefully attend that event if he can. So Kim, you're also the president of the Buffalo Sabres, and that was a franchise in the NHL that was suffering a little bit financially before the pandemic. How has this changed the way that you're leading that franchise?
Well, this one has been a little bit harder, I've got to be honest, because we are still in the uncertainty. Right now in football, we are going on with the season, even though we've had to change, just like we're having a Monday 5 o'clock game, which was supposed to have been, a last Thursday game. But you're adapting to that. Unfortunately, with hockey, there's uncertainty, and we stopped in March and we haven't played. And so that has been a bigger, I'm going to say bigger work that we are going to have to do. And we still don't have enough information to even start really planning for that. They've announced that they're hoping for a January 1st start date. But unlike football, we have different countries. So we've got some international rules that we have to deal with. We've got younger kids that are, we got Canadian teams and we got US teams. We got kids from all around the world. And we got different government officials. And really, I think the league is hoping that they'll see some positive movement in terms of fan space by January for us to get a season started.
Absolutely. Kim, the sports world is dealing with this pandemic, which is a heavy, heavy issue. But on top of that, there is pervasive racial injustice that the league, lots of leagues are dealing with right now. I want to bring up something that you said on this issue in June. You said, being both female and Asian, I always kind of considered myself a minority, but the murder of George Floyd, that really focused on another and a bigger issue that was more than just diversity. As someone who I thought was a big supporter in this space about racial equality and social injustices, I learned a lot, and I'm still learning a lot in this space. Kim, you said that in June. I'm curious what conversations have looked like since then and what you've learned.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is so true. We have had some great conversations here at the Bills and across actually all our organizations. We started out with doing these listen, learn, love, all town halls. And really there, we got to be able to really deep down personalize it. So we've had players and we've had coaches and we've had employees, our Black employees, talk about their experiences. And even if you're an employee, sometimes, you're looking up to a coach, you're looking up to a player, and you kind of see them in this kind of, the light of an athlete and of working in sports. And you forget that they're real people, humans, and that they've gone through experiences, especially if you're a minority, that maybe some of us haven't really dealt with or didn't really see them in that light. So we've had some amazing conversations across all our organization, all our staff, talking about these things. And more recently, we all went through an unconscious bias training, because there's another area where I think we could all learn and be better at. It has been really another uniting effort in our organizations with our staff. And we have seen a lot of people really step up, wanting to have the conversation, asking great questions. And as an organization, making sure that we are keeping that consistent. Sometimes things happen outside in the political realm or in society, and we all jump on board. And then, after we do a few things, we kind of just forget about it. And we're hoping that along with this, that the social injustice is something that we continue pushing forward to and making a priority in our organization.
I love that idea of reminding everyone that we are all just humans and to think about the lived experiences that we have. And you mentioned some of the emotional town halls that you had earlier this year on these issues. I'm curious what you think the NFL's role is overall in addressing these issues. What are you hoping to see from the league itself?
I do. The league actually has started along this road. Was Inspire Change was a program that allowed the league, the players, and the clubs to come together and raise funds to put into each club's community related to some pillars of Inspire Change with education, with providing some economic equality, police and community relations. So these were things that were happening before the murder of George Floyd and the awareness to Black Lives Matter. But this recent times has really stepped that up even more. And I do believe that the league feels, with the popularity of the sport of football and the big stage that we are able to get, and hearing from our players that, hey, we want to have a voice in this conversation, that we are much more engaged in being out in front and feel like the league needs to step up and be a leader in this space.
And speaking of leaders in the space, you're the first female president of both an NFL and NHL team. We don't see many women in positions of leadership across either of those leagues. We know through this pandemic that diversity is increasingly important in leadership. How do we change that?
Oh my goodness. I think, a lot of it, I know we talk about awareness and awareness, it does not mean just kind of saying that that's an issue. And I think it's just about, it really starts with each individual person. And I do think that there's a lot of of learning. I think, we have to seek out to make the change. We have to be deliberate. And we talk about that a lot, about how do we be deliberate in our actions. We started a diversity, equity, and inclusion council, and we are really looking to format that council is made up of staff across our whole organization, the diverse staff, and they're helping lead kind of formalized process and how we get better in our diversity numbers. And I will tell you, and embarrassedly, we are still not good with our diversity numbers. We want to get them up, but how do we do that? And so I think, but we just made it a priority this year, especially to go all in on diversity, including women. But we wanted to know how to go about doing that, knowing that this is a long problem. It's not going to be changed overnight, and making sure that we're doing it the right way that's going to benefit all our employees as well as our staff and our community. So I think you just have to make it a priority and have some deliberate actions, and make sure that that is always kind of in the forefront and the backbone of part of your culture of your organization.
Welcome. I'm seeing some members in the stream appreciative for your leadership in this space. Lorraine says, Kim, you're an inspiration, Buffalo woman here, supporting all things Buffalo. So Lorraine, thanks for joining us in this conversation as well. Kim, getting ready for this interview, I read a piece that you wrote in ESPN where you were explaining why diversity matters in leadership. It's 2020. Do you feel like you still have to explain why this issue is critical?
I do. I do. But, sometimes what happens is we all get busy in our everyday life and all the things that we think we have to do. And sometimes we just forget about the big picture, and even just, kind of like right and wrong. But I feel like we are still having the conversation, as you said. So I don't think things have changed enough. And I think that we need bigger leaders and bigger people to step up to say that diversity is good. I know there's a business reason to have diversity. I know there's been a lot of reports out there that shows that diversity helps increase your business from a financial standpoint. But I don't think that's the reason that we should be doing it. I think we are reflecting of our community, of our society. And I think that's really what it's all about. In sports, it's all about your community, about your team. And we have to make sure that that's what, that we're reflecting as an organization, our fan base and our community.
And speaking of being a reflection of your community, I want to talk about you and your background a little bit. You were born in South Korea and then adopted by Canadian parents who moved you to Rochester, New York. How does that background shape how you think about leadership?
You know what? A lot. I would say, sorry, it's such a heavy question. I would say that I tell people all the time, I was never raised to be the president of a sports team, or an owner of a sports team. And this was something that was not in my path that I thought about when I was growing up. And the path that you take is life, right? It's life. But I have learned that no matter what, no matter if it was just, the things I've learned as a mom or as a wife or as a daughter or as a coworker, those are all things that really, make you who you are as a leader. And I don't think that it's just about education. It's not just about your experience and your skills. I think there's just so many things. And I think my parents chose me. That's how I like to think of adoption, is that someone who's adopted, you get to be chosen. And so people sometimes ask us, well, why did you pick Buffalo? You lived there a few years. You're living in Florida now. And I just tell them because, they're a reflection of the type of people that Terry and I are, and that we want to be. And we chose Buffalo because we think they're very deserving in that community. And so all those experiences, football is a huge stage, doing a lot more media now than I ever did before. And how I was raised, my parents, and the framework they brought me up in really has kept me grounded and our family grounded amongst all this chaos sometimes that sports is. So definitely a lot of things that I did not know I would need to use now, certainly developed during my experience growing up and being adopted and having a wonderful family and husband that helps me through all of this.
That's great. Well, let's stick on this theme of choosing people and choosing places. You've said before about the hiring process that you wish that you could have a trial period with a coach before hiring them full time. I agree. I wish that I could have a trial period before I hired someone as well. What's missing from the current interview process that makes you think that we should rethink that a little bit?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that is part of it because, you know, everyone's putting their best foot forward during the interview. But there is so much as I've been learning and I'm still learning as a leader, and some of the leaders that we've hired in the past and we currently have, there's so much more. And I call it the intangible things, you know, the things that you can't necessarily just put on paper. And I will tell you, I'm not sure that all of us kind of do that really deep background check. When we're drafting a player in the draft process, we are talking to coaches, we're talking to their coworkers, the players, their teachers, their professors, their high school coaches. We are talking and we are diving really, really deep when we're drafting a player. And I don't know that we do enough of that when we're hiring people. We sometimes look at some of the just obvious things, and then might make a couple of phone calls on the reference list. But I think if we could do a big deeper dive and expand what you're looking for beyond just the skill set, education, or experience, I think that would be very helpful. And I've seen it. I've seen it both ways. You know, we've had some bad hires and we've also had some really good hires. And that's what I remember most about the good hires that we've had.
What do you look for in terms of the people that you hire? Are there distinct traits, or do you have distinct questions? Any tips for the members in the stream right now who may be hiring right now during this weird remote world?
Yeah, I would say, well, you know, it's a little bit different. So I'm going to say probably if it's coaching and a GM, at this point, when you're interviewing those types of people, you know, they know the football or the hockey, they know the X's and O's. And it's more about how really leadership. What are their leadership skills? How do they lead a team? Can they command a room? How do they organize themselves? You know, are they thoughtful about the other things that need to happen in an organization? Are they thinking about, or at least have an understanding of some of the business things? When we're talking about an executive, certainly wanting to see some leadership traits and, you know, the upside of a potential person, because you're hiring somebody, but you want them to grow with you. And so you're looking for a lot of it as potential, and you're looking for that in their leadership and their understanding, their communication skills, so key, and how well they work with others. I mean, I know these are all very basic, obvious things that we've all have heard or in the past, but it's hard these days to really follow through and dig deep into those really kind of gray areas to make the right choice.
Basic and obvious, but hard to snuff out.
It is, yes.
Exactly. I want to say some members of the stream are really enjoying this conversation, as am I. Jessica says, what an inspirational leader. Laura says, Bills will kill it at tonight's game. And Bob says, Buffalo Nation. Thanks for joining us, Jessica, Laura, and Bob. Kim, before I let you go, you talk about the X's and O's. How are you feeling going into this game against the Chiefs at this unconventional 5 p.m. slot tonight?
Yeah, you know what? We are both 4-1. And so, you know, that's always a great matchup. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes being the MVP last year, the Super Bowl, and then winning it, we've got a big challenge ahead of us. But we've got, you know, our team is fairly healthy, so that always helps. And we've made some great strides. Obviously, our quarterback, Josh Allen, has been tremendous this year, really pulling us out of some games that we might have been trailing at. And we've had a great consistency with our coach McDermott and Brandon being our GM, and that has really helped a lot. And I know Coach, and they're going to be ready to go, but this is football. This is, you know, this is live sports. And this is what is so much fun about this, is that you just don't know. And people ask me all the time, like, you know, what's the one thing about being an owner that, you know, that you find difficult? And I say, well, you know, you hired the coach, you know, got your team in place, you got the organization, you hope you have the right players, but at the end of the day, when you're watching the game, even as an owner, there's nothing I can do to make the outcome of the game happen the way I want it to happen. But I think that's the fun part about sports, the unknown, the underdog mentality. It's just so much fun. I love my job every day. And I know, and I so much appreciate all the aspects of it, even the bad and the good, but sports is just so much fun. The unknown, the unexpected, that's all part of it. So I'm going to embrace it no matter win or lose, but I do think that it's going to be a very good game. And the weather, it's been raining right now, so that might be in our favor.
Absolutely. Well, I know a lot of members in the stream will be rooting for you tonight, and I love my job as well, particularly when I get to speak with such inspirational leaders like you. Kim, thank you so much for joining us on LinkedIn News Live.
So, all right, go Bills.
That was Kim Pegula. She is the co-owner and president of the Buffalo Bills, who play tonight against the Chiefs. I want to thank her for her leadership in the space, but also joining us on LinkedIn News Live. All right, now we're going to bring you the results of the poll that we had in the stream today about how your sports viewership has changed amid the pandemic. Wow, 42% of you saying that you're watching less. Votes from Christine, Julie, Shelby, and Emily. Andrea says, with no fans and the virus spreading amongst team members and games being postponed, it's just not the same. We have Yaz, Jordan, Eve, and Aline telling us that they're watching more at 9%. And about 22% of you are watching about the same amount. Angela, Florencia, Thomas, Colin, and Hunter. I want to thank you all for joining in the stream right now and for joining us on the show. All right, tomorrow we'll bring you more coverage from the Milken Conference. Joining us will be Jonathan Goldstein, the CEO of Kane International, on what's ahead for property markets as U.S. cities are seeing a drain on corporate leases. I'm Caroline Fairchild. Thanks so much for watching LinkedIn News Live.